Hello, my darling pop culture junkies. We're back for another week of craziness. And this one in particular is a bit crazy. It's Pop Culture Mondays on Thursdays, and I'm your host, guide throughout all pop culture, Brooke.
On Thursdays.
All right, I promise crazy. It's a little crazy. So, a little housekeeping. We did not have a newsletter this week. I did send out a newsletter on Monday, making sure everyone knew that there was no newsletter, but also to tease this podcast because this is the only place this week to get all of your sort of important pop culture updates from me in my sort of tone and the way that I look and approach these things. And in this week, it's a bit personal. And I know I talk about personal things here in the podcast and in the newsletter. I get a lot of feedback from people when I share anecdotes and personal stories. But I guess I could call it an implied sense of transparency without being fully transparent. I am not here dishing my love life, my personal life. Sometimes I share some stories, but this week, it became abundantly clear while I was away and watching this particular news story unfold. Even in Buenos Aires, people were talking about it. It would have been inauthentic for me to talk about this without sharing my own personal views. And my own personal views because I was in a romantic relationship with one of the main characters of this story on and off for years. And I don't really talk about it. And I am going to talk about it today because I think it adds a little color to what we're seeing unfolding. And so, with that, drum roll, da 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 da. For those of you who know me, this is old news. For those of you who don't know me, welcome to my madness. So I am drawn to red flags. I would just like to preface that, or I was. I will say several years of therapy have definitely helped me be less attracted to red flags. Every once in a while, a little one sneaks in, but I'm doing my damnedest. I'm doing my damnedest. I am prioritizing dogs and friends over men, but that's another podcast. But this week's story centers around the very well-known and well-respected for his craft, writing and directing, Quentin Tarantino, who I was in a romantic relationship on and off for a number of years, over a period of, a long time. And I generally don't, I reference him sometimes on the pod or in the newsletter. His name is like Beetlejuice to me. So if I say it 3 times, like God, I have no idea what will come. I don't want to even try that, but we're unfortunately going to have to break that rule. I'm just not going to say his name 3 times at the same time. Just in case there is any truth to summoning dark spirits in that fashion, I'm not going to allow that opportunity to happen to me today because I am avoiding red flags. But Quentin is in the news, and Quentin is in the news for an extraordinary Quentin thing. And I wanted to weigh in because the reason it's we're not just talking celebrity news. This is dominating socials now. And I really want to showcase some of the very funny, very clever, very thoughtful TikToks and other social posts that talk about this moment in time. But I'm going to be honest, I have not listened to said podcast for which this is all coming from, because for my own mental health, I choose to not put myself in the line of fire, whereas I have to watch or listen to him for an extended period of time. So I am going on what others have said, and I'm going on clips, but I am fully transparent that I have not sat and listened to his podcast where these quotes came out. But I thought, you guys want to get a little bit of an understanding of this person's personality to understand what would make him do something like this. I thought, let me give you my thoughts. So what am I talking about? So there's Quentin in one corner, and then the person that most people are talking about right now is I think, one of the great actors, Paul Dano. There is another actor that is getting less attention, but he's actually been more outspoken about the things that Quentin has said about both of them, and that's Matthew Lillard, who I also love for very different reasons. Both fun. Also, like, we live in a world where we should be propping people up, but that's another story. So what happened was last week, a podcast came out with Quentin talking about his favorite films. And man, does he like to hear himself talk. I will be honest. There are many examples of this. It has lent him to be an incredible writer. And he is an incredible storyteller. I will be the first to say that I don't think he's done anything fantastic in the last few years, but that's just maybe my own personal feelings, taking a lens to that. But he went on this podcast talking about some of his favorite films, and he got into his friend, somebody he knows well, who he's hung out with a lot, at least during my time with him, but that's Paul Thomas Anderson, P.T. Anderson, the writer and director of incredible films, including Boogie Nights and the most recent one. Oh my God, I'm not even going to remember the name. What is it? The movie. This is the problem with this movie. I loved it. It was with Benicio del Toro, Leonardo DiCaprio. Let's see. I loved it, but I can't remember the name of the movie. They were just nominated. I think, I don't know if Benicio was. One Battle After Another, which I think got a lot of nominations in this week's Golden Globes nominations. So that's good. He also is the writer and director. P.T. Anderson is also the writer and director of, my God, you guys, I'm really losing it. Blood. P.T. Anderson. Well, this is how prepared I am. There Will Be Blood, which I thought was one of the greatest movies ever, and it starred Daniel Day-Lewis and Paul Dano. And rather than me tell you, let's just listen to what Beelzebub, sorry, I had to, my little dig, had to say about Paul Dano.
Now, I would say, though, There Will Be Blood would stand a better chance to be in number 1 or number 2 if it didn't have a big giant flaw in it. And the flaw is Paul Dano. Obviously, it's supposed to be a two-hander, and it's also so drastically obvious that it's not a two-hander. He is weak sauce, man. He's a weak sister. He's just such a weak, uninteresting guy.
Did Quentin know what he was doing when he said this? I think so. I think Quentin likes being in the news, whether it's positive or negative. I think he likes it. I think he misses being in the conversation right now. PT is in the conversation. Would I say there's rivalry there, friendly or otherwise? I definitely would. Man, there's some stuff I just can't get into. But here's the deal. So people have lost their minds, and they've lost their minds in the best of ways, like coming to the defense of Paul Dano, coming to the defense of him as a person, his acting, going off on Quentin, really, really critical of his approach to this. And even if he feels this way, I think a lot of people are like, why? To what end? Why wake up and choose violence in this day? And I'm going to tell you why I think that is. It is in his DNA. So we're going to go through some of the reactions from celebrities, from regular people, and what they've said or what they've tweeted or what they've created or what they've done in a humorous way. But I thought before we get into that, it might help paint the picture of why this is just who he is. And he is a moth to the flame. And if there are two paths, one for which you can just take that is just a calm, cool, calm, collected, above it all sort of approach, or if there's a path to take that's really fucked up and that's going to really just get even if it's going to inconvenience you, it's going to really fuck other people over. Quentin will choose that path over the nice and easy and relaxed and no drama path. So I will preface that. I mean, he named a Nazi after me in a movie very proudly. So I will be very, he's told me this. He said this. He may have told like many other women this. I don't know. But the role of Diane Kruger in Inglourious Bastards, she played Bridget von Hammersmark. And Bridget was Brooke, Hammersmark was Hammerling. He used to always call me Brooke von Hammerling. And so when he was writing the script, he was very excited to tell me that he had named somebody in the script after me. Now, we didn't speak much during that because Quentin is the artist that he is, where he shuts himself off from the outside world when he's writing a script. So if you're in a relationship with him, you just have to shit or get off the pot. You have to be okay with him going dark for 3 months, not emailing, not calling, not being present, not being available. Like, doesn't matter if somebody in your life died, he will not be going to the funeral. He is completely focused on the craft at hand, which is writing a screenplay. So when he did come up for air and told me that, he didn't tell me that it was a Nazi. He just said there's a character named after you. When he gave me the manuscript, the screenplay, he signed it to Brooke von Hammerling, and I still have that tucked away for a rainy day. And during the premiere, which is the first time I saw the movie, and we were in New York, and she was being killed. It was now apparent to me that Bridget von Hammersmark was the Nazi. So I'm well aware throughout the movie of what is going on. And I was obviously well aware when I read the screenplay. But seeing it come to life is much different than reading it on the paper. And sorry, spoiler alerts, if you haven't seen Inglourious Bastards, skip ahead. But she dies, and she's supposed to be dying at the hands of another star of the film who is strangling her. But Quentin, during the premiere, leans over to me and says, "Those are my hands." Like, super excited. "Those are my hands. Those are me. Those are actually my hands. They're not the actor's hands who's meant to be killing her. Those are Quentin's hands." And he said it with such glee, such delight, that it was not lost on me that he had already told me this character was named after me. And he was now saying with delight that he was responsible for murdering her on screen. Like, it was like a snuff film for him. I'm not even joking. But he took great delight in telling me that this namesake was being strangled by the guy sitting there in front of me who I'm supposedly going home and sleeping with that night. So there's that. I'm not going to get into the foot stuff. I think everybody can say unequivocally that there is absolute truth to that. I do have really great feet. So I'm just going to say that's one of my assets. And maybe that was the only asset. I don't know. But I'm just going to give a few anecdotes as to why I think this is so on brand for Quentin, and things that I haven't shared, but other than with my close friends. So I remember at one point we were dating. I went to the grocery store. I lived in New York at the time, but I was visiting his home in the Hollywood Hills. And I went to the market. I went to Bristol Farms, and I wanted to fill the refrigerator with things that we could both enjoy, that I could certainly enjoy, things that I could just get. We had people coming over, so like snacks, things that people would want to eat. Pretty standard practice. I also got things that I could cook, should we not want to go out. This is before like Uber Eats and all of that, but I am at my heart a hostess. I love feeding people. I love having a spread. And I also love things with mayonnaise, which my Jewish friends tell me is terrible. Like, that doesn't make me, it makes me like I'm not Jewish. But I'm sorry, the things that my friends love who are Jewish are made with mayonnaise, including chicken salad, whitefish salad, which I did not bring into this house. So what I brought into the house was chicken salad. I also brought mayonnaise, a container of what I would call Hellman's mayonnaise as an East Coaster, but west of the Rockies, Hellman's goes by Best Foods. So the East Coast logo is, or song, jingle, is bring out the Hellmans and bring out the best. And west of the Rockies, that lingo, what do you call it? Jingle is bring out the best foods and bring out the best wild. So I brought my Best Foods mayonnaise and I put it, I even think I must not have put it in the fridge because I hadn't opened it yet. So it was sitting on the counter. And I'm not exaggerating when I say I had to stay in a hotel that night. He flipped the fuck out. How dare I bring mayonnaise into this house? That is like, if I understood him or knew him, I would know that is like, I have crossed a line. I understand people who don't like mayonnaise. I really do. You don't like mayo? Cool. To turn it into nuclear war and kick me out of the house because he's so offended by the audacity of me bringing in something as odious and detestful as mayonnaise, I broke some code. It was a really dramatic thing. Now, yes, it is not lost on me that I could have easily been like, okay, crazy, okay, I'm going to hit the airport and go back to my safety and security of my home in New York City. Instead, I was going through, at that period of my life, probably self-esteem issues. I also did truly love him. I really did. And I was devastated and upset and apologetic and groveling to how could I fix making such a huge mistake as bringing mayonnaise into the house. So there are those types of things. And there were other offenses that I did where, I didn't, in his mind, give him enough attention. I wasn't available 24/7. I didn't fawn over him enough, or I didn't answer the question about what my favorite movie was enough, or I didn't answer a movie trivia question to which reminded him that I was not a actor or somebody in the film business or in entertainment at all, but in fact was a tech person. And every once in a while, he would remember that I was in tech and he would get, viciously critical of tech, hated technology. At that point, he didn't even have a phone. He would fax, he would begrudgingly email. He hated the tech world, but was fascinated by my role in it. So it was, you never knew the ground for which you were standing on was whether it was going to crumble beneath you. So it was a very unsteady place. And then he would disappear. And then I would go and end it, realize it was over, and I would get together with somebody else and be dating. And then he would swoop in and tell me everything I wanted to hear. And I would blow up said relationship and go back to him. So I take full responsibility. That is on me. But another unhinged experience with him that also paints a picture of the level of absurdity in his thinking is I was heading to Australia for a long trip to go visit my niece who was living in the Northern Territory, Darwin to be exact, which anybody who's familiar with Australia, most of my Australian friends are like, I've never been there. Like, why the fuck are you going to the Northern Territory? There's not much there. It is like very Crocodile Dundee land. And it is a very long, arduous trip because I had come from New York. I was staying with him for a week or so. And then I was flying out to the Northern Territory, and you have to go like a couple of flights. I also was not flying first class. Let me be clear. It was at a stage in my life that I think I was like premium economy. It was a long flight. And he had been saying, he was dropping me off at the airport, and he said, let's make a whole day of it. And he'd grown up in the Manhattan Beach area. He was very excited to take me to this like local spot, restaurant that he had gone to as a kid, grown up, his favorite. He said, the best burgers in town. And I was jazzed. I was like, I want to see a part of his life that I didn't know. I want to see a part of this vulnerable upbringing that he had. I was really excited, and we had a lovely afternoon. I mean, it could be yesterday. I remember it so vividly. I remember what I was wearing begrudgingly because it was not my greatest look. I was just really excited to spend that day with him, and then he was taking me to the airport, and then I was on my way. And so we had a lovely afternoon, and then we go to this spot for dinner, an early dinner, and he's so excited. We go and we sit in a booth, and I am thinking I'm going to be on a flight for like 20 hours. That is what I have ahead of me. I am not going to, and anybody who can relate to this, I think almost anyone, I am not going to order a greasy diner style cheeseburger, French fries, all the fixings, literally just a couple hours before I board a flight for 24 hours. My stomach cannot, I am not in the mindset to have that experience, whatever that experience may be. And so when we get down to it, of ordering, he gets the cheeseburger, French fries. I order a chicken salad, not chicken salad with mayonnaise. God forbid I made that mistake again. I just mean like a green salad with grilled chicken on it. And looking back, I remember like something definitely changed. Something shifted. But I didn't notice it in the moment. Everything was fine. We're laughing, da 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 da. I asked him for a bite of his burger. He says no. If you wanted to taste the burger, you need to get your own burger. But that's par for the course. A little tit for tat with him. He brings me to the airport, kisses me goodbye. I am just sort of like, I can't wait to see you in 2 weeks. Da 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 da. I'll talk to you. I'll call you when I land. All of that jazz. I don't hear from him for the entire trip. And I mean, he doesn't respond to my phone calls. He doesn't respond to my emails. He doesn't reach out to me at all. And I call and I email. And I think, he was on Facebook at the time. So I Facebook message him, nothing. And what that does to someone, especially somebody in that sort of precarious state of like, where are we, was that I was left completely bereft on this entire trip. I was there with my sister-in-law, my niece, and I was not present. I was just constantly looking at my phone, constantly like, where is he? I couldn't sleep. It's just that feeling of like, being abandoned, which is not anyone's dream, that ghosted feeling. I went on Twitter, I'll never forget, to like search to see where he was, and he was spotted. Like he had gone to New York. I remember like he wasn't dead. That was sort of my, like, is he dead? And I do hear from him as I'm preparing to come back to let me know that he can't pick me up at the airport. And I'm like, okay. So what went wrong? He did finally acknowledge to me that there was a problem, that he was really upset and he didn't know where things could go from that point forward. And it was because of the fact that I ordered a salad with grilled chicken. That I wasn't the girl he thought I was. He thought I was the girl that was getting ready to get down with him and eat a burger and fries. And instead, I became just like another basic bitch who worried about her figure and didn't want to eat the bad food in front of him. When I explained to him, like, that was the furthest thing from my mind. I just didn't want to have an upset tummy on an airplane. I didn't want to have a massive burger and French fries sitting in my gut as I was sitting in an upright seat flying 24 hours. Like, that made all the sense to me. It didn't matter. It was too far gone. His narrative was already created. Therefore, I was the one who failed him. And he made this absolute proclamation that I was a disappointment and that I wasn't the girl that he thought I was. You would think that would have been the end. You would have thought that would have been the end. But no, and I'm not going to bore you with this and that. Years went by. I kept going back. I have another boyfriend. I'd go back. My friends know the story. They were so bored of it. They were so bored of me. They were like, this is not your guy. And, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. I thought he was genius. I think he is genius. I thought he was brilliant. I am very attracted to and fall in love with the mind and the creative soul. And that to me kept outweighing the other things. But then the relationship did finally end after he came back into my life again with everything that he's done, the whole pomp and circumstance. And this time, even more so. This time, he got down on his knees and begged me to come back, said that I am the girl. This is what the future holds. He was so dumb. He always thought that he needed to be with an artist, but he in fact realizes I am an artist, me. Brooke is the artist, and I have been such a fool, and everything I have done up until this point has been to lead me to this revelation, and everything a girl, or at least me, could dream of hearing. And it was like right around this time a gazillion years ago. But he had a new movie coming out, and I reconnected with him. I'd seen him at the premiere because I'd gone, even though he and I were in relationships with other people, and we both found out that those relationships were not working out in a conversation very briefly at the premiere of that film. And so he comes back into my life like a rocket, and I allowed it. And I said to him, I thought I was really strong, and I was dying on the inside because it was like everything, like I could have written a script. I couldn't have written a script better. It was like the rom-com come to life. Like after all of this, he's finally figured it out, and he's finally looking at me from as I'm sitting on the couch, and he's in my office on his knees being like, this is what I hope for and what I want. I told him that my friends were the ones that were going to have to be the sort of decision makers on that, and that I was having a girls' dinner that night with some friends, and we were, I was going to suggest he come to that dinner and plead his case with them, and he did. And we were, oh my God, we were at Indochine in New York. My girlfriends were sitting next to me, like squeezing my leg when he came in, and he was wearing a jacket and a tie, and he was on his best behavior, and he said all the things that they would have wanted to hear somebody who loved their friends say. So it was just I just remember being like, this was what it was all for. I went through all of that to get to this point, and we're here. And it's not going to be easy. I understand being with an artist, and I understand his personality, and I'm not trying to change that, but here we are. It was worth it. And when I say the next morning was the last time I saw him, that is not an exaggeration. He got on a plane, and I didn't hear from him again. I was supposed to go out the following week, and then we were going to have Christmas together, and then we were going to go up to Santa Barbara and see the film there. Needless to say, I didn't hear from him. Needless to say, I definitely broke. And the cruelty, the lack of thinking of others, the selfishness, the just saying whatever comes to his mind in that moment and then not meaning it. This is all sort of where we're at. Anyway, it turns out he got engaged to the woman he's married to 3 months later, and voila, he did call me. I was at the gym to let me know. And I said thank you. And then incidentally, a couple of years ago, very funny story, where I did have my mojo at this point. I was in Hamburg, Germany. I was at a very fancy hotel. I was there at this conference called OMR. And shame on me for not researching. I had gone as a friend of Kara Swisher's. Kara was a big keynote speaker. She asked me to come along with her. I did no research. I did not look. It was just, to me, a marketing and tech conference. I figured I knew the people who would be speaking, hundreds of thousands of people in the audience. And we're staying in this great hotel. Kara's producer, Lara, was there as well, thank God. And I woke up really early and decided to go and just put my hair. It was like the first morning we had gotten there. Kara was asleep. I didn't want to wake her, so I'm like creeping around the big suite in her, leaving her in her room, so I didn't wake her. And I like threw my hair in a bun, put on leggings, and I was going to go work out, but I wanted to go and have coffee and a little breakfast first. So I go downstairs into the restaurant, and it was this like very Bavarian room. And the hostess was standing at this like very Bavarian wooden thing and was like, "Can I have your room number?" And this way. And so she showed me where my table was going to be, but I was like, "Great." So I went, put my stuff down, put my phone down, put my book down, and then she showed me where the food was. And there is something I can't say no to, and that is a German breakfast situation. There were meats, there were cheeses, there was maybe a pretzel or two, there was like sausages. So I'm carrying 2 plates of food, and I proceed to go back to my table, at which point somebody is now sitting at the table sort of just around the corner from me. Nobody else is in this restaurant. And that person is Quentin. And he is sitting there, and I am holding literally plates of sausages and cured meats and cheeses. And he's sitting there with a script in front of him and a dirty white t-shirt. And I look at him and I don't even know what to say. I say nothing. He proceeds to get up and I go, "Not today, not today." And I go to my table. But the problem is I can't move. I can't get up without him seeing me. He can't see me because where I am, I'm blocked by this wall when I'm at the table, so I'm protected. But like, I don't know what to do. So I text Lara. Thank you, Lara, Kara's producer of Pivot. And I said, "We have a bit of a situation. My ex is here." And she goes, "Your ex is in Hamburg?" And I said, "Well, not only is he in Hamburg, he is in the breakfast room for which we were the only people." And she's like, "I'm coming down." And she comes down. And what Lara sees when she walks in is the only person she sees is Quentin Tarantino, at which point she comes to the table and she goes, "Did you see Quentin Tarantino is here?" And my face gives it all. And she goes, "Oh." Now, Quentin probably heard her. That's how close we are. And so she's like, "Pretend to laugh. Pretend to laugh." So I'm like, "Ha, ha, 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 ha." And then she's like, "Let's exit the situation." And she gets me out of there. Quentin tries to get up and Lara's like, "No, sir. No, no, sir," and ran out of there. So that's my last interaction. I thought that would be a little fun segue away from the general typical stuff we're talking about here. But it was time. It was time because that person that I know him to truly be, the cruelty, the haphazardness, the thoughtlessness, the insecure person that he is, I think that I am pretty knowledgeable of. And my take on the Paul Dano stuff in particular is that, I don't know, I think this guy actually sums it up really well. I agree with him. I think Quentin really wanted to be an actor. I mean, I don't know if you guys remember his little run in The Golden Girls. If not, let me show you. Uh-huh. Yeah, he played an Elvis impersonator in The Golden Girls. Thank you very much. You're welcome. He wanted to be an actor. He puts himself in his films. He gets his friends to put him in films. He loves being on camera more than I mean, I know he loves to write and create and be the god, but he loves to be on camera and he's not a very good actor. And I think that maybe when he sees somebody, just like this creator points out, who's not classically Hollywood hot movie star, get accolades for his acting, it tears him up. And I have to believe something personal went down with them. And he's been holding a grudge or sitting on something for so long that he used this as an opportunity. And maybe it was 20 years ago. It could have been. He holds on to something and he let this one go. So first, let me just show you the creator that points some of that out.
The reason why Quentin Tarantino has a disdain for Paul Dano that just seems so personal is because in his mind, he looks at a guy like Paul Dano, who isn't what you would consider to be the typical Hollywood conventionally attractive dude. and he's been able to carve out a successful career and be adored by fans. But he was not given that same adulation as an actor. Despite all his brilliance as a filmmaker, Tarantino has always wanted to be on the screen, and people just have never accepted it. The only time Quentin Tarantino has ever been cast on screen is in a film that he wrote himself into, or he got one of his buddies to put him in. Because outside of Tarantino being a great filmmaker, he just doesn't have any aura. No matter how cool he tries to come off as, it just never works.
And then there are the tweets. I mean, Ben Stiller, always, God bless, love you. There are tweets in sort of making fun of him, in shock, supporting of Paul Dano. And then let's just go through some of my favorite TikToks and videos.
I just want to say I love Paul Dano. And if you don't love Paul Dano...
What's your favorite Quentin Tarantino movie?
Who's Quentin Tarantino? I'm dead serious. Who is that?
I fucking hate Paul Dano, okay? He's the worst part of There Will Be Blood, alright? He's a mediocre actor that doesn't hold a candle to Daniel Day, okay?
Whoa, why are you hating on him, Quentin?
Because he's weak sauce, and I don't like weak sauce in my cinematic spaghetti, Betty.
And you've said these comments publicly.
Yeah, bitch fuck.
Well, you've gotten some reactions from some pretty big names.
Probably agreeing with me, those sheeple. You know, Hollywood eats out the fucking palm of my blood so canned, okay?
Not exactly, no.
What?
Well, Ben Stiller said Paul Dano is fucking brilliant.
So there you go. Story time with Brooke Hammerling. You're welcome. Now, Matthew Lillard, I don't think Paul Dano has said anything. I wouldn't. Matthew Lillard has. He's like, it sucks. It sucks. So there's some people who have made some funny takes on the Matthew Lillard stuff. So just to give you a little sampling of those.
You can pack your things and leave. There's the door. There's the door, bitch!
What we need to do now is get focused and stop pointing fingers. You're a problem. You're a real problem.
Quentin Tarantino this week said he didn't like me as an actor. Whatever, who gives a shit? Listen. The point is that it hurts your feelings. It fucking sucks. And he wouldn't say that to Tom Cruise. He wouldn't say that to somebody who's a top-line actor in Hollywood. I'm very popular in this room. I'm not very popular in Hollywood. Two totally different microcosms, right? And so, you know, it's humbling and it hurts.
But it's interesting how many people have like really, really gotten upset over the Paul Dano stuff, especially because, first of all, it seems so personal and that movie was so good. Like it's just like to say, and it's insulting to PT, who, if you have any historical knowledge, PT dated Fiona Apple for a long time. Fiona had her own experiences with Quentin. This is just a little example of a conversation that it would be like, this gives you insight into what it was like to date him. Because I'm telling you, these were like my dinner conversations. So again, shame on me for staying, but here you go.
I knew I never had to worry about that I was gonna die before I made a movie. I knew I would never die. God put me on earth to do this thing. He's not gonna take me out before I can do it. Oh, really? So I can grow up in Los Angeles my whole life. I loved earthquakes. I loved them when the earthquakes happened. I wouldn't get out of bed. They happen in the morning and I'm laying in bed. I'd never get out of bed, man. I just ride it. I'd surf the earthquake. I ain't gonna die in it. God didn't put me on earth to die in an earthquake. He didn't put me on earth to die in a car crash. Die in a plane crash. After I did Pulp Fiction, maybe I could go now. Maybe I'd done what God wanted me to do.
She saw me on one of the worst nights of my life.
Yeah.
Well, look, it was a horrible emotional night for me.
So Fiona described this encounter as excruciating, apparently. And then she said this, which I have experienced with both of them. Every addict should just get locked in a private movie theater with QT and PTA on coke, and they'll never want to do it again. Talking about sort of having to listen to them brag and talk and go through things, and apparently that's what got her off of drugs entirely. So bravo, bravo. I mean, the two egos in the room. So I don't know if Quentin that was like Paul Dano was actually an extension of him, like being upset with PT and the brilliance of this film, which he doesn't even reference, this year's, brilliant film. So I don't know, but it is a lot. And it makes, I think, I don't know, if I were an actor, I would not want to work with him. I'd be like, this is not somebody, this is like a bully. And it just feels, we're in 2025, my darling. He's still so lost in the late 90s. It's not the world we're in anymore. But cocaine is a hell of a drug, as Charlie Murphy, our friend, used to say. All right. So I'm going to get a lot of shit for that, but I thought it offered context, and that's all we want, a little context. Other stuff that's happening, since we're let's just keep it a theme of sort of disappointing men in our life, whether personal like this one. The other one I'm about to mention, I have no personal interactions with, thank God, but that is Billy McFarland. If you recall, he is the person behind the Fyre Festival. He's also the person that went to prison because of the Fyre fucking festival and taking money from investors and, all of the bullshit. He went to prison. He came out of prison and decided to just troll everyone. And he's been posting crazy videos. He announced that he was going to have the Fyre Festival 2. He called it Phoenix. Get it? Obviously, please. Phoenix rising from the ashes. It was off the coast of Honduras. And he kept talking about it. Nobody really believed it was real. Then as tickets sold, as we approached it, which was happening last weekend, as we approached it, more and more unhinged TikToks and videos that he was posting came out. So just take a look.
Phoenix is taking place in 4 days, and if nobody puts their logo up there, you are absolutely crazy. Let me show you the final product here with the stage. Ramel, where's the machete, my man? We have 3 big palapas that make up the stage area right here for Phoenix. Check out this beautiful island. We will see you guys here in exactly 4 days.
Like I said, cocaine is a hell of a drug. I thought it was a joke. Like, I really did think that he was just gonna, this was all gonna be a launch of a crypto coin or something in that ilk. But no. We got a Fyre Festival 2. And it did get off, actually it happened. French Montana was the main act. There were less than 100 people there. Confirmed. So let's just take a little gander at what some of the creators who were on site showed through their lens, as well as some other little funny tidbits from the festival.
Other interesting things from last night. A guy with one leg offered me a drink out of his false leg. One guy had taken so much ketamine, he didn't believe he was real. So when I talked to him, he goes, "How are you talking to me? I'm not real." And then I saw a very old couple. One was German and one was Argentinian. And if you know the connection between Germany and Argentina post-1945, you'll understand why that's a bit suspicious. But I've invited them to the festival.
Guys, I'm watching Billy McFarland's Fyre Festival 2.0, Phoenix Festival, whatever you want to call it. I did pay the $6.99 or whatever it was for access to the live stream, and let me tell you what's going on so far. It started out a mess. In the beginning, it was the drink vouchers were gone, so they were only going to do a cash like bar situation, whatever. So that was a whole thing. And then the guy also said that French Montana had arrived in Honduras, but his plane is too big to make it onto the island. That island being Utila, of course. So that's kind of where they stand there. They said they are figuring it out. They will get French Montana onto the island via helicopter, maybe a smaller plane. I don't know. We don't really have insight into what French Montana and his team is thinking. Did they know this would be the situation? Whatever. I don't know. There's like nobody there. There's also like nobody there. It's kind of strange, but I'll keep you updated as it goes on. What do you guys think? Put your thoughts in the comments.
I've hosted bigger parties in my backyard with people having way more fun and way better food. He needs to get out of this game. It is so embarrassing. The live stream had like at one point, like I think if I recall, it was in that video, it was like 90 people watching. Leave it to the professionals, Billy. Leave it to the people who know how to put on music festivals. You know, there are a lot of really great people out there. By the way, this podcast is sponsored by Live Nation, I'd like to say, as the leading example of a company that knows how to put on a freaking festival. So I hope this is the last we hear of Billy McFarland. And then the last thing I want to talk about is 50 Cent and P. Diddy. Talked about it in last week's podcast, but I hadn't seen the docuseries yet. It had not come out yet. We were just talking about what we were seeing in the clips and the long game that 50 Cent has. But this is why I hope that if you guys are listening to this podcast, you may go over to YouTube and watch this podcast, because some of these clips are really, and I'm going to get in trouble because of the music. So hopefully we can play a few of them. But just to give you an example, people really latched on to the idea that Diddy was involved somehow in Tupac's murder, but that then in turn was why he had his hands all over Notorious B.I.G.'s murder. Not that he orchestrated it, but because he was involved with Tupac's, allegedly, or what they're putting out there, that then fallback came onto him. And another person, very similar to the Quentin conversation, who fancies himself an artist and wants to be famous, like a famous artist, was Diddy. He wasn't happy just being the master of ceremonies of running a record label and being super famous and super rich, having brands like Sean John and Ciroc, whatever. I don't even know how to say it, Ciroc. Lots of brands. He wanted to be a rapper. He wanted to be respected for being an artist, and he was not. And so when B.I.G. died, and he took it as an opportunity to put himself front and center with a song with Sting, with his ridiculous dancing. So I'm a girl that grew up in the suburbs of New York City in Westchester. And a lot of where like we sort of overlap is Diddy comes from Westchester, but he comes from Mount Vernon and I come from Rye. And those two worlds were not the same at that period of time. And I was a very sheltered, privileged, like girl who followed the Grateful Dead and Fish, as one does. That's what we did. And so I was not really knowledgeable in the hip hop stuff. I knew like the hits, the things that would carry over, but I wasn't following the B.I.G. and Tupac's drama that much. But when Biggie died and that song became like a hit, I remember exactly like he and White and B.I.G.'s wife and then Sting, and he became a star. Like it's like the way I equate J-Lo, and J-Lo's topical here. J-Lo wouldn't have been famous if Selena hadn't died. Now, she wasn't responsible, of course, but J-Lo got cast as Selena, and I don't think there would have been a vehicle that put J-Lo front and center like that. And so J-Lo's success came as a result of somebody's murder. Totally different, I know, but still. People say J-Lo doesn't have the talent that really takes to be a superstar, but she got there through other means. Incidentally, J-Lo and Diddy were together at a very sort of crazy period of both their careers. But here are some of the very funny TikToks that people have taken, and it's hard to explain, but basically it's people that are showcasing like what Diddy's dumb dance was and what he did, like making after Biggie died, planning the huge funeral, making it a spectacular. Then what we learned in the docuseries was that he had Biggie's estate pay for said funeral. So he didn't spare a dollar. It was all taken out of the estate, though he said it needs to be the biggest. I'm planning it. I'm doing this. All of it got charged back to Biggie's estate. So here's some of the videos. Sorry, Ethan, I know I'm going to get in trouble with strikes against us. So hopefully we can get some of these through.
Life after death.
And then commentary. I do like some of the people who have commentary on the Diddy take on all of this, their take on the Diddy moment. 50 Cent, man. I mean, this guy, the fact that he got this footage, and I don't know if we know for sure, but apparently he was able to get this footage, especially the footage that was, clearly made by Diddy and his team following him those days leading up to his arrest. The story goes that he didn't pay people and he treated people like shit, which is why there's so many people in this docuseries being like, hey, but he didn't pay people. And the people that included the people who were filming this and had this footage. And 50 Cent, money talks, baby. And so he came upon the footage, I think simply by paying for it. But I like the commentary that some of these really thoughtful people have on what was happening.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say, hey, y'all, Diddy ain't coming home. Diddy ain't coming home. I'm going to let it be known right now. After I just broke down the framework of this documentary that they just dropped, there's no way he coming home. Now, everybody's saying, yeah, he going to beat the allegations on the woman. Yeah, y'all not even realizing what they doing in this documentary. They're showing evidence, right? People going to watch this documentary and reopen the case just depending on Diddy so he don't come home.
The most hilarious thing to come out of the Diddy documentary, if there is a hilarious thing, is that you guys realizing that Diddy wasn't talented at all. Like, he's kind of like the hip-hop version of J-Lo, in the sense he was just, like, so good at, like, rebranding. Like, I'm so sorry. Like, in my eyes, J-Lo could have really fell off if, like, she never got that American Idol job back in, like, 2012. Since then, she has not stopped bothering us, right? That was kind of what happened when Diddy got Making the Band. You forgot that he was, like, kind of in charge of being, like, nefarious and the gang violence and the Tupac and the Biggie. When he got Danity Kane on the charts, when you were like, do you got a first aid kit? Yeah, he slapped a Band-Aid on all of that because we were jamming to Damaged. And we were like, oh yeah, damn, like, yeah, Diddy kind of did something right. You know what I mean?
And it's interesting. Some legal experts do think that this could reopen a case, that they could use this docuseries as a way to go after him for other things, especially with the juror and all of that. So who's to say? All right, well, that's it. If you haven't seen Zootopia 2 yet, I guess we're all missing out because it's like the biggest movie ever. And Five Nights at Freddy's, that's another kids sort of thing, or a video game, all of that. That's huge. So that's where we're going. The independent films of yesteryear are no more. So the big box office blockbusters are going to be kids films, animated films, K-pop movies, and video game sort of extensions. That's where we are. All right. Well, thank you again to Live Nation. And thank you guys for listening to my very personal storytelling this week. But, every once in a while, I'll throw out a curveball. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, comments, email me, brooke.hammerling@gmail.com. Please like and subscribe to this podcast. It really, really helps me. Thank you. Have a great week.